doing this application changed me. You know, I don't sit around thinking about like, what's my vision and who am I and how have I gotten here and who's mentored me and how am I inspired and what do I really care about? So articulating a vision as an artist is such a powerful experience.
When I got the call, I felt like doing a few backflips.
Of course, I started to cry, and then I thought, this is a joke. Like, I never win anything, so I think I'm being punked right now.
When I opened the email, I was reading through it, and at first I thought, this must be a scam.
But I was super surprised. I had no idea. I know when you're going to put this online and stuff, but I don't believe it.
They don't usually call you if it's bad news.
When suddenly, for some reason, someone decides that you are worthy of this award, it's just a really great feeling.
And I was shocked. I mean, I was flabbergasted.
It was such a wonderful surprise.
I wanted to cry, I wanted to laugh, I wanted to scream.
I put the phone down for a second, I had to do a little dance. It was great, it was a great moment.
Marta Garcia, photographer and teaching artist. Teaching is very important to me. It was a moment when I myself became an artist, was when I was myself recruited into an arts magnet program. That very crucial moment in a teenager's life when they begin to develop passion towards any art, for me was life-saving. To be able to give that back to a student or to be a part of that moment when there's that click is just so filling. To me, photography is very much about exposing myself and, in this case, students to different cultures, backgrounds, subcultures, or even experiences. One of my most recent projects was connecting young people to senior citizens. We went to a senior center and each student was assigned a participating senior.
I thought I was just going to meet somebody in a couple days and just leave and we're never going to see them again, never going to think about them. It's just for photography and just to get some really nice pictures. But the stories that he told me, they were so deep. They made me really think. And I mean, I never forgot you.
My sisters and brothers, when we come in school, it was something. When we go out, they made us sit in the back of the classroom. It was awful.
Whether it be in a photograph or in their lives, when they exercise that ability to see, it's just beautiful. Seeing the young eyes open up to the world around them, they begin to see opportunity in places they didn't before, and that being a part of that and being able to give that is I couldn't possibly ask for anything more, or to serve in any other way.
Mirka Gerten, actor. I was really shy as a kid and I wanted to do mime, and so I did some really fun little shows at school and took some classes and things like that. And it was always about just expressing yourself and becoming someone else. And my grandmother owned a wig shop, so I had access to about 30 wigs, so which made it really fun for me to become other people. And so I thought that that's just, you know, that's what you did.
I'm not so good at these slow dances.
No?
No, much better at this kind.
It'll be like a high for me, and I'll leave and I'll have to come down and I'll be like, okay, well, I have to let Cecilia go. I'm going to take her off, and now I have to be myself. And, you know, and I've been doing that since I was a kid, and it's all I really know how to do.
Like to dance, Sue?
No, thank you.
Come on, the three of us can dance.
No, really, I'm fine.
It's just become like a drug for me, and it's almost like going to church. I'm a spiritual person, but I don't go to church on Sundays. I go to the theater as often as I can, and that's where I feel you know, I don't feel when I am in the theater or working on a play that I don't feel any of my MS symptoms. I wrote With or Without Wings in 2000. Everything was taken from my journal entries from right before I was diagnosed until my mother was diagnosed 5 years later. I couldn't understand why like the universe was trying to like shake us off. It ran for a while in Chicago, and we won a Jeff Award. With the money that I was making off of that show, it didn't seem right for me to pocket it. So I started a non-for-profit called MOOKIE Jam. It was basically a bunch of artists coming together to work on that show, and we were able to give an award to a young woman, an actress in town who needed some help, who was just diagnosed with MS. So we gave her $4,000, and that was my first award. So I've done that for the past 12 years. You know, the best cure that I have for my MS has been my art. I think that's what keeps me going and keeping me alive and interested in what the world has to offer, is if I just keep just creating art.
Lisa Kaplan, pianist. Since the time really that I was about 10 years old, I knew that I wanted to perform. And I had played the piano and the violin actually since I was about 5. But there was something I just really loved about being on stage and performing. I'm very much a proponent of, you know, composers write pieces and they put them out into the world, and then I feel that they have to let go, that you have to give it up then to the performers to interpret. I think part of my persona when I play the piano is very physical. I definitely feel it like in all aspects of my body.
And time stood still, and all the village. So then he said,
I had the most incredible piano teacher when I was a kid, who I studied with from about the time that I was 7. And he is 83 now and still very much a mentor for me. And he also was a composer. And so I had played music of his, and he was probably the only living composer I had played until I got to college. Only very recently, in the context of my work with 8th Blackbird, which is really what I've been doing for the past 18 years, have I started doing some arrangements and also some composing for the group. And I've been very inspired to do the composition part of it. Obviously, the work of the composer is incredibly important, and we wouldn't exist as performers without that. But it's also about bringing your own personality into that work.
Irena Knežević, artist. I get stuck on something and then I'm very interested in it. So I'm a very curious person in general. I'm very driven when I'm interested in an idea. What I'm very interested in is in a way that art can be connected to action. Not making the viewer make your art for you or anything like that, but actually that the art project uses the laws of every day or some legal loophole that one might find and apply it to itself, to kind of highlight both the paradox of the situation that is created, but also not just to point to it, but to interject in it and create another real situation out of it. One of the projects I'm working on right now is with a company called Borovo, which was a shoe infrastructure in the old Yugoslavia. And it, in the 1960s, developed over 9 years a shoe for working women. After Tito died in 1980s, the shoe was discontinued and then never really used anymore. They are now, through this project, reinstating this shoe, which is going to be manufactured and reinstitutionalized and becoming a shoe that the women would wear at an art institution. So what this project manufactures is this kind of zombification of Yugoslavia, and also kind of a future past place, a ruin from which this beautiful object, this shoe, is being created. In Serbia right now, which is going through a transitional period towards a kind of capitalism, like all the museums are closed, you know, like, and it's very interesting. What does it mean? What kind of world is it where people don't need art or question if they need art? But in a stage of emergency, any state which is not a regular state, which we are all in actually all the time, we need art. It's the last thing to go.
Ronnie Kuller, musician and composer. It's only in the last few years that I've started thinking of myself as a composer. I've always been a musician, I've always played instruments. My first instrument is piano, and I play violin. When I was 23, I started hearing accordion music in my head, and instead of seeking psychiatric help like most people would do, I purchased an accordion and learned how to play it. Pretty much learned how to play it in MOOKIE, which is my favorite band that I'm also in.
Start Tango by MOOKIE.
I'm so grateful that I get to be a part of that community of musicians and composers and people who are available and interested in playing things that I've written, and I play things that they've written. It's basically a composer's collective at this point. When I compose, I'm either at the piano or washing dishes at the sink and humming something, and then I realize that I'm humming something I haven't heard before, and then I realize I should probably write it down. If I had to choose my influences, I'd say I grew up playing Chopin, and music of the Romantic era is definitely what's closest to my heart. When I write a piece of music, I'm not particularly thinking about how it's going to be received. I just find what's inside of me and I put it down, and if my friends agree to play it, that's pretty great. If people dance to it, that's fantastic.
Michelle Rodriguez, dancer, teacher, choreographer. I'm Cuban. That's the start. In Cuba, you know what you are going to be since you are little. Like that's the way that we are taught that like people have a job and you have that job for life. Originally, I was going to be a gymnast. I was 6 years old, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a gymnast. I'm gonna go to the Olympics. That didn't happen because I hurt my elbow, and I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? My thinking about dance was ballet. Like, I don't like ballet, I don't like wearing tights. And okay, I went to the dance school, I saw the classes, the Afro-Cuban music. It was like love at first sight. I was like, I need to do this. All my time in Cuba, I had the chance to work with excellent choreographers, but I was so young at the time. I became professional when I was 17. I went to Europe a few times, I did so many tours, but for me, all that time felt like I was still at school. It got boring. Like here, I have the chance to meet so many people. Like I have 3 rehearsals in a day. I'm exhausted at night, but that's rewarding. You know, there are some days that I say like, why am I doing this? You don't make too much money. You are never gonna have money. Like that's the reality, but the thing is like, you love it. And I don't see myself, it's not that anything wrong, but I don't see myself behind a desk. I need to be barefoot in the studio and lifting people, dancing, you know, like rolling in the floor. That's what I do and that's what I like. And I hope I can do that for as long as I can.
For Sean Sanders, choreographer. I started dance later in life, like right maybe 7th, 8th grade. And it spoke to me right away. It was enjoyable, it was fun, it was athletic, and I've always kind of been into sports, so I did track, I did softball, I did soccer, but dance kind of was able to reach me in a different place. As a choreographer, I kind of started dancing with a group of dancers, kind of informally, you know, just doing some performances here and there. Having a company was not my first intention, but I really enjoyed creating the work, working with dancers, collaborating, and so that's kind of when I came to the understanding, okay, I think I'm supposed to have a company. I do have something to say, and I want to have other artists involved in that conversation. So I started Red Clay Dance Company in 2008. The red earth, the red dirt in the American South is something that always stood out to me. Going back and visiting every summer, it was something I didn't see here in Chicago. As choreographers, we mold our work and clay is molded, and so that's kind of how I came up with red clay. It's been a journey. Over the last couple of years, I've really been investigating what my contribution is to dance.
Robert Schleifer, actor. Having been in theater for a long time as an actor, I can't hear, I am a deaf actor, so I pick up things very quickly through visual observation. And that's a skill that a lot of other people don't have, but that's what I've incorporated, and it's sort of that perception that I want to share with other people through my experience to influence their experience. On stage, working as an actor, it's really about relationships. Sometimes people forget how to develop relationships with others. So from my experience, or based on my experience, that really applies to my teaching. To help people develop their characters. And also through physical movement, for example, how people walk, their body language while they're walking, facial expression, body mechanics, the movement, all of that. And how that relates to others in their scene, to allow people to really explore who they are and have that awareness increase, to have others be able to experience what it feels like, what I feel, and I want to convey that worldview to them. That for me is the most fascinating about teaching. I love to watch people learning and beginning really from nothing, starting from scratch. And through the experience of teaching, becoming something. And that process is amazing to me.
Kelly Simpkins, theater artist. I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, and I was 6 feet tall at a very, very young age, and just felt displaced, I think, in terms of myself, and I knew I was gay from a very young age. So there was an otherness from the very beginning.
See, that wasn't so bad.
I'm embarrassed.
Don't be embarrassed. That is your fortune. You paid for it. Now, open it.
When I was in grade school, I had a really wonderful, she was a homeroom teacher of mine. One day she said, "Do you want to audition for the Vaudeville Revue? And would you play one of the Marx brothers, Chico Marx?" And there was something that aligned with me, and I felt like this woman saw me, like somebody saw me for the very first time. And the performance of that, I felt like I rose up inside of myself for the first time and felt me and felt expanded and felt like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
But what I'm telling you is this: you can come down here, eat a couple of po' boys, listen to some Cajun music, you go back to wherever you came from. After Katrina, people flocked here and told us how to live and be. Where are all those people now?
I feel so incredibly privileged to be a part of any theatrical endeavor where I get to be a representative of the other, of characters that are infrequently seen on the stage and silenced a lot in our society. I'm really drawn to stories about class and gender and social relevance and social consciousness and social justice. I think that theater is incredibly evocative and really powerful, and I've been privileged to be a part of shows that I think speak to the humanity in all of us and challenge us.
Colleen Smith, interdisciplinary artist and filmmaker. I think of myself primarily as an experimental filmmaker, and I was trained in that way. I had this desire to sort of unearth and create images of African Americans that I wasn't seeing. And then as time has progressed and progress has been made, what I realized is that while images of us proliferate, there's a real tendency to for people to want a certain kind of authenticity or ethnographic reality-based rendering of Black culture, of which is, I think, confining. I came to Chicago to do research about an American composer, Sun Ra, and that really opened up for me this amazing sort of possibilities about how to be an artist. I've come to think of art making as kind of the practice of philosophy, but with materials, with things, with spaces. I think as I grow older, I kind of think of my own identity as like a shared identity, and that like this history that I spent my youth sort of unearthing is everyone's history. I kind of feel that way about the entire planet to a certain extent at this point, you know. But I feel like the work I make has gotten increasingly whimsical and sort of fantastical, because I'm trying to resist this idea of authenticity.
Come to tell you, the space is the place. I want to thank Colleen Smith for giving us some Thank you, Colleen. We're going to keep it high. Yeah! Yeah!
I think that people should have the right, like a fundamental right, to imagine themselves however they want to be.
We hear no so much in this profession. No, 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 no. And sometimes you hear a yes that is overwhelming.
Joy is even, I don't even know if that's big enough to describe it, because, you know, you just work so hard.
It's just, it really enables you to feel like the work is worth doing, that someone wants to support it, that, you know, that you actually are contributing in some way.
To get that moment of kind of like, someone sees all my hard work.
I have been resourced financially and artistically in such an amazingly generous way.
Like this little LED light in the back of my brain was like, maybe now I can start.
There's no denying this yes and saying, we celebrate you. We celebrate you in Chicago. We celebrate the art that you're doing, and we don't care what you do with it. Use it however. We celebrate who you are as an artist, and there is no greater gift than that.